So, first of all, I apologize. I was not able to be here at port events all morning long, but I did understand that I need to come up here and give my ocean bona fides. I did not grow up surfing in Southern California. I grew up in Detroit, but I moved to San Pedro to live on a sailboat, and I lived on that boat for 7 years. So ocean is our business. Ocean is my home. Ocean is my recreation. And Jack?
I'm probably the only person in the room who hates the ocean. My hatred of the ocean started in July of 1992 on 26th Street in Hermosa Beach. I was out there body surfing and unfortunately caught a wave where I came over the lip straight into a sandbar with my head, which earned me a speedboat ride to Kings Harbor and a broken neck. And I've hated the ocean ever since. Just kidding, I don't hate the ocean. But I do respect waves. So I was hired by Altasea to sort of take this idea of creating solutions for the ocean and make it accessible to a wider audience. When I was out in the parking lot during lunch, I noticed a lot of Priuses in the parking lot, probably more Priuses than I've ever seen in a parking lot my entire life. And I realized, and I probably realized coming in, is one of the dangers when you get with a group of like-minded people is sort of preaching to the choir. Everybody here believes in the ocean, loves the ocean, wants to do what they can for the ocean. But the genuine challenge is how do you take that love of the ocean and how do you take those things that you want for it and make it accessible to a public that maybe either doesn't know, doesn't care, doesn't have access to. A kid living in Nebraska cares probably a little bit less about the ocean than a kid living in Huntington Beach does. And so here in our community, we have a lot of kids who are underprivileged, and even though they live really close to the ocean, their ocean is the Port of Los Angeles, which is an industrial ocean, and it isn't really the same as growing up in Hermosa Beach or Huntington. And what we see is with the ocean an opportunity to create solutions so those kids can come back in their communities and have a great job that's ocean related. And in a sense, that's exactly what Altasea is trying to accomplish. And one of the things that I found very heartening this morning was, although this is the choir and we are preaching, we've heard a lot of solutions. Like when we had the restaurant panel, the panel right before this, talking about things that make it where the solutions are there because the customer, or whoever it is in whatever business it is, either wants it, demands it, or will accept it. And like the big conversation this morning has been straws. And I always come back to the idea of like, why do we even need a straw? We can't just do this. So I was talking to Sarah from Heal the Bay, I don't know if she's still here, during the break, and she mentioned a legislation that's coming up in the state of California where restaurants will be required to ask customers, would you like a straw? I'd say 50% of them will be like, I don't really need a straw, and so there you go. Half your straw intake is gone with one simple solution. So today, and Anne's really great with her company, is about finding solutions, and Braid Theory, what they do, and she's going to tell you all about it, is finding solutions that can be commercialized and turned into businesses, so now there's a business case for protecting the ocean.
So I'll start riffing off one of the things you said about legislation. One of the things that we look at for business drivers is opportunities that create a competitive advantage. And when you have regulation or legislation that comes down that changes the landscape, that creates a perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs to take advantage, to be a first mover, and to come in. So what I'm going to be showing you today is a number of case studies of companies we have advised, mentored, or recently got to know in the last 18 months or so that are all looking at different ways of finding opportunities that also are good for the ocean, but create the business case and the opportunity. Because based on that past panel, there's an assumption that doing good costs more, but if you build the business case, it doesn't always. And so if we just have to think about it that way. So our company, Braid Theory, basically what we do is we look to find strategic partnerships between the entrepreneurs, early adopters, investors, influencers like yourself. We put together partners to actually create the business opportunity to help companies get to market and scale. We work in many industry sectors, not just ocean, marine, maritime, but advanced manufacturing, ag tech, biotech, construction and infrastructure technology, heavy science and engineering focused companies. this is a little bit of an eye chart, but along the middle, ocean, marine, maritime, ports, goods movement. I like to think about it like those maps where you see San Pedro in the middle and everything else looks small. If I take the lens of ocean, marine, maritime, ports, goods movement as to sort of the underlying theme of where we go, there's all these interesting industry adjacent opportunities that go all the way up into social good, disaster management, ag tech, biotech, and it really creates a really rich environment of opportunities when you start thinking broader than just, for example, cleaning up plastic in the Pacific Gyre. So I want to talk about 4, and I'm going to start having Jack helping me. But I'm going to have 4 different categories and just go through a number of examples of some companies that we've worked with or are working with or starting in talks with. Direct ocean-focused solutions, those solutions that are more upstream, where they ultimately, we talked about industrial stormwater and water, the pollution going into the ocean. We've got solutions around there. Sustainable uses of ocean resources, and then information and monitoring. So, e-concrete. So I just want to go through a number of these examples. Jack, jump in. But e-concrete is very...
I know nothing about concrete.
Okay, so this is an interesting thing. You don't think there's nothing new about concrete. This is a very interesting company. When you put pylons in a marine environment, of course you have the barnacles attaching. Over time, those barnacles start eating away and eroding your infrastructure. Their formula, as well as their forms, create an environment where when the marine organisms attach, it actually, their exoskeletons strengthen the infrastructure. So it becomes both a marine habitat and an industrial solution. Cool, huh? Ocean renewables, Sea-Trek. This is a really fun one. So there's a lot of exploration going on, very necessary exploration around oceans and getting data. We need to know, right? So there's all these autonomous underwater robots. What do you think happens when and the untethered ones, what do you think happens when they run out of battery power? They sink to the bottom, they're done. What this company does is basically allows those to be perpetual motion machines because it uses the temperature differential of the ocean when it goes up and down to recharge a battery. Cool.
So let me just jump in on this one real fast because we do have a robotics company here who's a part of Alta Sea Blue Robotics. You can visit them a little bit later, and I'm just going to go off on a slight tangent. One of the things that a company like Blue Robotics is going to be able to do is democratize ocean research. So right now, one of our partners at Alta Sea is Dr. Bob Ballard. He's the gentleman who discovered the Titanic, and he has a big ocean exploration vessel called the Nautilus, and on the Nautilus is this submarine called Hercules that can go down to the bottom of the ocean and explore, which is wonderful for Dr. Ballard and his crew and other folks like it. But I have a middle school kid, and my middle school kid, not this Christmas, but last Christmas, got a flying drone for Christmas. So the next thing you know, our house has become almost like Star Wars. There's drones flying all over our house and this and that. Well, with underwater drones, what we can do is give the opportunity for kids like my son and others to get involved with the ocean and create their own ocean explorations. And then you go beyond that up into high school, you go up into college, and then you go up into career. And the ability to make it a more populist way of exploring allows us to create some of those discoveries that have not been found. There's 90% of the ocean that hasn't been explored, and there are many, many, many solutions to our mankind's problems down there. And like other technologies, the ability to make it accessible to a wider population of people can create some great opportunities for our state and for our country and for the ocean, because as people become more engaged in the ocean, they're going to want to protect it more.
And of course, then you really start creating opportunities around citizen science, opportunities, building business cases, and I'm actually going to show you another example. So this is a really interesting one. We have a partner on the East Coast called Ocean Exchange. It's a nonprofit organization that works with industry to fund two $100,000 prizes for technology startups that have solutions either around sustainable shipping or other ocean sustainable applications. So the wing trawling system was actually the winner of a $100,000 prize this past fall. And what they do is it's all around the shrimping industry. So right now, the traditional way of shrimp boats work, and I didn't know much before we started doing some mentoring with this company, is they basically clear cut the ocean floor. So they scrape along the bottom. Now, not only is that very destructive to the ocean bottom, it also has a lot of bycatch. You know, the fish, everything that it's in its way gets caught along with the shrimp. What this company does, through 3D modeling and lots of trial and error, and the owner of this company is a longtime shrimper, he basically looked at the form of a stingray. And you know, so instead of clear cutting along the ocean floor, there's like one sort of a balancing point that scrapes along. And because of the shape of the stingray shape, the fish that swim like this swim out of the way, and the shrimp that swim like this jump up and get caught in the net. Anybody who is on the shrimp boats, they reduce their bycatch, their staff costs are cut exponentially, they're faster to market, it's a much more efficient way to go. So you may have your own views about wild-caught shrimp, and still it's not a perfect solution. But when you start looking at entrepreneurs finding better business models and the better mousetrap, they're also looking for the business case that makes it easier to do the right thing. And the guy that did this, the inventor, was able to bring the costs in, even for the first application, on parity with the existing system. So it doesn't cost more to do better.
Wait, just so I understand. So when they use this device, it creates a more sustainable way, or is it still scraping the bottom?
No, it's not scraping, because instead of these flat panels scraping along, it's just the single point that is just to guide the base. It's very cool.
One of the clusters at Altasea is aquaculture, and I know aquaculture in the ocean community is a controversial subject because it's been done very poorly and improperly in many parts of the world. So one of the challenges that a group like this has in front of us today is how do we go look to the ocean to do it in a way that is both sustainable and can meet our food needs. We are going to be embarking on a global food security issue, whether we like it or not. The population is growing and our earth resources are shrinking. So as we look to the ocean, we can look to it as a source of protein, but if we do the ocean what we've done to our land, you know, all you have to do is look it down in the rainforests in South America, then we're back to square one again. So part of the solution process isn't just finding the quick, easy solution that meets today's needs, but looking at it in a more holistic way so that it's done in a way that will be sustainable and that will allow future generations to continue.
So let me jump ahead to that second category, sustainable use of ocean resources. So, of course, Catalina Sea Ranch is one of the companies that is over at Altasea. That's for food, of course. Out of USC, Marine Bioenergy is looking at kelp as a way of an energy source, so food, fuel. And Stellar Biotech is an interesting one, using keyhole limpets and basically sustainably harvesting the blood from the keyhole limpets for different pharmaceutical applications, maybe curing cancer, but vaccines and that sort of thing. So when you start thinking of the ocean as a resource as well, it makes business sense to do it to harvest sustainably, to use the resources sustainably. Otherwise, you basically lose your business. You run yourself out of business if you're not sustainable in how you do the
One of the other projects that I worked on has raised a bunch of money for cancer research here in Southern California at USC and UCLA. So I had the opportunity to have a conversation with the executive director of the USC Norris Cancer Research Center, and there is already pharmaceutical applications that I think it's Johns Hopkins are studying as to, I wish I could remember the exact specifics. Unfortunately, I'm not a scientist, so as he was speaking, I was just nodding and pretending like I understood what he was talking about. But the idea is that, the takeaway that I got from that conversation was that as we look to those solutions, we now have a vested interest to protecting the ocean, not only because it creates that cancer research solution for somebody who might have cancer, but if we don't keep that area clean and healthy, then the solution disappears. And so again, sort of the back to the theme of what we're trying to accomplish with AltaSea is, how do you take a solution and make it something that not only works for XYZ, whatever it is that you're trying to solve, but how do you do it in a way that continues to evolve and make a more healthy ocean?
Excellent. So I'm going to go back here to the gutter bin. There was a question on the last one about our polluted beaches and why they're so polluted. And of course, industrial stormwater runoff is a big issue. So I want to throw out, this is a place where regulation and legislation is creating really interesting opportunity. So there in July of 2016, there was new regulation with the State Water Board requiring more stringent reporting from industrial sites like our port community about their industrial stormwater runoff and what was being run off, and making sure that and oil spills weren't just draining right into the ocean and so on. So there's a very stricter and stricter regulations about industrial stormwater runoff. Well, what this company does is it has this gutter bin that goes right into the storm drain. Now, their original idea was, of course, to pick up the plastics from going in. Cigarette butts are huge fish killer, so that was high on their mind. But there's also a filtering system in here for removing the hydrocarbons, the grease, the oil, the gasoline that comes down and runs through our stormwater. But there's another problem that has not yet been solved, and that's the heavy metals that are going into the ocean from the brake dust, from the tire dust. Well, this system is able to capture that fine dust sediment that you see all around our ports, and we're working with them right now on testing the efficacy of this system to be able to remove that fine silt and dust. And there's not a solution out there that does this. If this company is as effective in removing these heavy metals that we think they're going to be, they become what's called the best available control technology. Once there is existing technology out there that has been shown to solve a problem, then this company has a first mover advantage to be able to sell their product at a premium, because now the industrial community will need to implement it because a solution is out there. So this is, this is one of the things I wanted to actually bring to this audience, is to think about how you shape guiding regulation and legislation, and how it can be turned into supporting what's going on in the entrepreneurial community, so we sort of better connect on coming up with viable solutions.
So, another real-world example, I'm born and raised here in San Pedro, and in the late 90s and the early 2000s, the local environmental community aggressively lobbied, sued, did everything they could to bring to light the pollution that these ports were causing. Single greatest pollutant in Southern California isn't cars on the freeway, it was this port complex. And the port complex, although it created pollution Southern California-wide, if those of us who lived here, it really affected us dramatically. So in 2001, 2002, they created this thing called the Clean Air Action Plan. to reduce emissions and do a lot of different introduce a lot of environmental technologies. Anne was part of this group called PortTech LA that was a part of that. And I can tell you just anecdotally that ever since the Clean Air Action Plan got instituted, you can go out and see your car in the morning, especially on a dewy morning. In the past, there would be black soot on your windshield, just every day. And that's pretty much gone. They also cleaned the harbor. There used to be no marine life in our harbor. Now you'll see dolphins and barnacles on the bottom of boats, and you'll see that the very first-hand effect of when the pressure is applied, how there's an effect that actually makes sense and it works. So solutions like what Ann just mentioned, they are the future of making this a better place. And this place right here, the port, is sort of been at the forefront of that because it has been such a polluter that the environmental solutions needed to be found here.
Exactly. So, a lot of talk, at least saw in the agenda, lots and lots of talk, of course, about ocean plastics. I told you I was at a port event today. So, at our tables were jars of plastic pellets. I'm going to tell you a little statistic here. No, I'm not going to be able to get. So there are 16 new facilities generating plastic pellets, not recycle, that are coming online for the next couple of years. They're expected to have 725 million container loads of new plastic. 80% of that plastic will be shipped to Asia to support the burgeoning and growing middle class of Asia. Right now, bioplastics in the marketplace is a very well-known technology, but the feedstock is very expensive, so the applications are only typically around pharmaceuticals and very high-value plastic pieces for medical situations and so on. This company, Full Cycle Bioplastics, twin surfers from Northern California, San Diego, I don't remember, are actually using food waste as the feedstock to basically ferment that to become the basis for a bioplastic solution. This is the first one that I've seen out of all the companies that I've been looking at that maybe starts creating the business case for a bioplastic. Now you might say, well, why do we want bioplastics? We want to get rid of the straws, we want to get rid of the plastic bags. Great, but what about the caps on your inhalers for asthma? What about the solutions that really need that single use for applications that, this is not for shelf stable. This is for sort of single use applications. So this could be a really good game changer for some very interesting and necessary applications. All right, Corball, this was a finalist at Ocean Exchange. A lot of talk about microfibers, a lot of interest by companies like Patagonia, not a lot of solutions. We all like our fleece, we all like our microfibers. What this company does is created this ball that actually mimics the fine fibers of the way coral, sort of things catch onto coral. You put it in your dryer and it basically tangles up with dog hair and cat hair and human hair and traps these microfibers, which then you can get them out of the waste stream. It's not a complete solution, but the business case is it also gets rid of all the cat hair and dog hair from your clothes. Kind of an interesting thing. All right, we went through those. And then the last selection, X Prize, where are you, Matt? This is Sea Crowd. This is, I think, a really interesting opportunity that ties back in, especially with the tourism industry. This is citizen science, where you can have a monitor as a scuba diver and yes, you're collecting very hyper-local data around, coral health, temperature, but it's also a really awesome way. I mean, I wish I had this when I was diving last week in Aruba to sort of catalog my dive. You can get this data, share it, be a part of it, and I did a little bit of customer discovery, trying to find a way to write off the trip, but no, it didn't work. But the dive shop said, yeah, they think people would pay a premium to rent this device to become citizen scientists. It also, because it has this app component, they see it as a great opportunity of actually enticing the next generation of scuba divers, which then gets a lot more people involved and interested in ocean. A really great collaboration is Patty is working with them to help connect them to the dive community, do customer discovery, do joint marketing efforts. And I think this is a really interesting opportunity for advocacy organizations to look at partnering with companies like Seacrowd to help further your mission, but also help a startup. Back to tourism industry. Was it 2013, 2014, where Oahu beaches were shut down because of an E. coli scare for like 5 days, and Hawaii lost billions of dollars in the tourist industry? This company can now do rapid detection of E. coli, so instead of waiting 3, 4, 5 days, they can actually detect the amount of E. coli in a matter of hours. And that then keeps the bacteria from going downstream and can be stopped at the source before it gets into the ocean. Another company that does water quality testing around metals, nitrates. So if you're trying to look for agriculture runoff from fertilizer, this is a company that has a low-cost kit that can be easily deployed out at the source so that we can better detect what is getting into the watershed. And so those are, for everyone on screen, there's, 100 more. There's a lot of really creative people working on it. And I just encourage everybody in this room, the reason why I'm here is to really start thinking of a more holistic approach. So you don't have advocacy on one side and business on the other. And because if we're really going to solve these kind of major global challenges, first of all, we've got to think really holistically, work it back to prevention, not just cleanup, find ways to help industry construct the business case to do the right thing, and we're here to help build strategic partnerships. Braid theory, the reason we're named that way is because that's built into our DNA. Our tagline is proving collaboration works. And we are just now actually trying to figure out and start some partnership opportunities to just get the conversation going from academic institutions, from entrepreneurial community, from the business community, from the advocacy community, to start thinking of as an ocean enterprise collective to go after more holistic solutions. And last but not least, more than half of these companies are actually going to be showcased at an event here in San Pedro on April 12th, because we need to get these solutions out into the market, get people learning about them, touch, feel, show, and tell. So 2 minutes and 22 seconds. We didn't leave a lot for questions. Jack?
No, I think that questions would be great because, as Ann mentioned, the collaboration part of it is huge. One of the things that AltaSea will be doing here at the Port of Los Angeles is bringing the business community together with the academic community, with educators. Education being the probably biggest and most important part of that. because it gives the future generations a love and respect for the ocean, and and encourages them to get involved with science. But it doesn't happen without participation of partners. Alta-Sea essentially is just a big umbrella with a lot of different partners. So the folks in this room here today are the first line of sort of defense on what we're trying to accomplish, and welcome your questions.
And I'm one of the Braid Theory, our company, my co-founder Jim Cooper back there. We are one of the first tenants of Alta-Sea, and we're their business partner to bring some of these companies in. So please, questions. Anyone? Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you say what is Alta-Sea?
What is Alta-Sea?
Sure. So Alta-Sea there's a 35-acre campus that is being built over at City Dock 1 here at the Port of Los Angeles. And so Alta-Sea is a marine research institute that will be the home to private businesses, academic research in the form of a partnership with the Southern California Marine Institute, which is a consortium of 23 universities and colleges doing research, and education. And the education is not specifically, but mostly targeting underprivileged children from the nearby communities that wouldn't have opportunities to study science unless they had those opportunities here.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So what's actually really interesting about our business model is we don't start with the investment idea in mind. We work really hard on getting the entrepreneurs to really go after the market opportunity, and our whole business model is we make money when they make money, so we're all kind of going in that direction. Once you have proved traction, and you have customers, you have people that are interested, you have potential for changing regulation, then you're not necessarily needing to go through the impact investing route, although that is an option, but you've built the business case that it can go to a straight angel investment, VC, accelerator opportunity, and so on. We also look for, I mentioned ocean exchange. We look for non-dilutive sources of funds for our entrepreneurs as well. If they can get a $100,000 award to move their technology forward, great. If we can find funding for a pilot project, we look for that. Jim is a killer SBIR grant writer. So there's a lot of federal funding to move some of these solutions forward before you go to investing. So, I guess what I want to leave with you, yes, I think there's a huge role for the impact investing side, but it's a harder play because it's the do good. And I think it goes in parallel with what we're trying to do. Did that answer your question? Not really. I guess part of it is because it's really not, to us, it's the impact investing model might not be the fastest way to get a solution to market based on our connections. Let me put it that way. Other questions? Jim, do you want to answer about impact investing any further? Do you want to answer any further about impact investing model and how we bring that in?
One of the things that we have to remember about any kind of investment is there has to be some kind of return on investment. So if a company is looking at some kind of impact downstream and it is inside the 2 to 5 year development window, then I think it's probably a good idea to do some impact investing. The outside of that, I think that things like challenge grants and awards work
Well, and sometimes it's the investors that are funding those challenge grants, so we're sort of indirectly getting through to it as well. So I think we're out of time. I'm around for the networking. Jack's around. Jim's here. Please come up with ideas, opportunities, questions. Happy to talk further. Thank you.
Thank you.